Hello, welcome to the Vico Office Tutorial Series. My name is Levi Froelich. Today we will be talking about the Cost Planner. We will talk about adding elements to the Cost Planner, how to code, and dealing with the hierarchy. Please open the Vico Office suite. It is assumed that you have already imported your model into Vico and created the Takeoff Manager. The first step is to open up the Cost Planner. You can find the Cost Planner under 05 Cost Planner and type and hit Clip Plan Cost. This is the Cost Planner. It is where we estimate the cost of all the elements in our model. It is used similarly to Excel, where we type in all of the elements that we have in our model, and then as in subcategories we add in all of the cost elements of those elements. The key of using the Cost Planner is to use codes and create hierarchies correctly. So the first subcategory that we have of elements in our model are cast in place concrete. So we will use the code 02 and type in cast in place concrete. The next subcategory of cast in place concrete are footings. So you'll type 02.01 and type in footings. Within footings we have two types of footings. So therefore we'll create a third subcategory, 02.01.001. And this will be foundation (1800) by 1200 by 450 millimeters. We have created two subcategories of CIP concrete. In order to show this hierarchical relationship, we have to press this down button. We hide the footings and press down. This showed us that the footings are a subcategory of CIP concrete. And this foundation, we click down twice to show that it is a subcategory of the footings. If we want to undo this, we can click up. Within the foundations, we have to now, of this specific type, we have to add in all the cost elements. The cost elements for each item can be found in a Word document that you can download off Moodle. The first cost is concrete. Since concrete is the same cost for all elements of cast in place concrete, we'll use a generic code. We'll call it C1-1 for concrete. Whenever we now use the code C-1, it will always refer to concrete. Now we have to add in our source quantity. The source quantity of concrete for this element is the volume. So we click FX, we find the element within the list, click here, and find the correct geometrical element that we want. So here we have net volume, which is the amount which represents how much concrete we have. So we click here and hit the plus. And then the net volume shows up over here. If we wanted to do twice the net volume or some kind of weird thing like that, we can use this box as a formula. So we can do plus and hit it again. If there is an error, then it'll show up in red. So let's get rid of that. And we have the net volume. And we click OK. We have a waste factor of 1.05. And our unit cost is 350 shekels. And therefore we have the net total, and what Vico does is it just multiplies across. The next thing we have is the concrete labor. Now again, this code is the same over all elements that have concrete, because the concrete labor cost is the same. So therefore we'll call this C-2 and call it concrete labor. The labor unit, the consumption rate, is in units of meters cubed per hour. Therefore, we need to have the volume, the correct volume, listed in our parent quantity. So we'll just copy what is written here and put here. However, our consumption rate has changed. For this exercise, our consumption rate is 0.5 hours per meters cubed per person. Therefore, our unit now is units of hours, whereas here the units are meters cubed. The labor cost is 60 shekels per hour, which gives us the net total of 291.6. The third cost that we have is the cost of the formwork. But again, since the formwork cost is the same for all elements, we will create another generic code, F-1, which you will call formwork. Now, the formwork, we need to have the correct source quantity, and this depends on the element. For our footings, we want all four sides of the footings. So let's find the correct footing. Which is the edge surface area. And we clicked OK. Now, our consumption rate is going to be 30 shekels per meter squared of formwork. Since this is already in meters squared, all we have to do is add our cost, which is 30 shekels. Labor of the formwork. So again, since the labor of the formwork is the same over all elements, we'll use one generic code, F-2, which is formwork labor. We use the same area. Our consumption rate is hours per meter squared per person. And our unit cost is again 60. I would advise putting all of the consumption rates, your consumption rates in hours per unit per person, because one of the nice things about Vico is it allows you to choose your team size later on. Now we've added all the four cost elements that are in the foundation. The next stage is to show how to make these in the correct hierarchy. So we shift all of them and click down. Now all of these are in the correct hierarchy. However, what we have to do is we have to activate the assembly, meaning we can see here that the foundation has no net cost because this assembly, as they call it in Vico, has not yet been activated. So we highlight this and click Activate Selected. It now has become bold and has now tallied up all of these different costs. And the same thing we'll do for all of the footings and for CIP concrete. We'll now continue on and show the next footing. So here we have 02.001.002. This is foundation 2400 times 1800 times 450 millimeters. We will now have it's the same concrete cost, C-1. The only difference is it added all of the cost. However, it does not have the correct source quantity. So we'll now change the source quantity to this footing and net volume. We now have C2, which is the labor. Again, we have the same volume. We also have to add the consumption rate, 0.5. We now have F-2 or -1. This is the former cost. We now want to use the correct source quantity, edge surface area, add the correct consumption rate, and that's good. And then you can also add your units if you would like. Meters cubed. This is now in hours. This is now in meters squared. And then we have F-2, formwork labor. Again, adding the correct parent quality. Adding the consumption rate. Adding the unit. And then, of course, adding this into the correct hierarchy. And then activating the assembly. This has to be moved down 1. You can ensure that your hierarchies are correct by seeing how far down the highlighted aspect goes. An important thing to note is that when you use the generic codes, the only things that are transferred over are the names and the unit costs. So you'll have to add in the source quantities and the waste factors. Activate all of the elements by clicking on the topmost assembly and click Activated. One more important point is that Veeco will calculate the unit costs for us. However, we must choose the correct unit that represents the element. For columns, the unit cost would be in shekels per meters cubed. Therefore, our unit that represents the entire assembly will be the volume, or meters cubed. For the floor, our unit cost would be in shekels per meter squared. Therefore, the unit for that represents the entire assembly will be in meters squared, or the bottom surface area. Similarly, for doors is shekels per unit. Therefore, our unit that represents the entire assembly will be in units. It is important that for each title of each assembly, you choose a unit that represents that assembly. Otherwise, Veeco will throw an error and you will not be able to schedule it correctly. In this movie, we learned about the cost planner, where we added elements to the cost planner, we learned about coding, and we learned about the hierarchy.